Welcome, my friend. Thanks for reaching us here at Woodlands North. Do you want to make a do-it-yourself fire wick that's wind resistant, water resistant, and takes about 10 minutes? You probably got all this stuff sitting around your house. So why don't we get into it right now? Okay, so here's some of the materials you're going to need. Of course, you're going to need some petroleum jelly. You're going to need a spoon or something to get the jelly out, of course. You're going to need your jute twine. You're going to need some kind of tube. This one is aluminum. You can use a plastic one if you had to. This one's about 3.5 inches long. I find that to be a decent size. You're going to need some kind of paraffin wax. And if you don't have any, you could probably just use some old candles to melt down. You're going to need some kind of old pot. Don't go use your wife's good pot, because it kind of looks like this after a while, and nobody likes that. Nobody's happy after that. And of course, you are going to need some kind of heat source. Today I'm just using my little butane stove. Start up the stove here, and I'm going to put it on super low to begin. Just use common sense when you're doing this. You don't really need super high heat. And yes, of course, paraffin and petroleum jelly can, ignite if you're not careful. So do be mindful of that. So I'm going to first put a little bit of petroleum jelly in here. And you don't need a whole lot, but you can see it's going to melt pretty quickly. Okay, so now it's pretty much all melted. So now I'm going to take my twine here, and I've got more than I need. That's okay. There's other things you can do with it, or you can just cut it in half, whatever you need to do. And I'm basically just going to turn this heat off now and throw it in there, let it absorb all that nice, wonderful stuff. I'm just going to mix it around so it takes it all in. And actually looks like I had more twine this time. So I'm going to add a little bit more of this petroleum jelly and just let it melt. I'm just moving this around so it all gets a chance to take in some of that petroleum jelly. If there's any left after, just take and dump it back in here and you can use it for next time. But we'll see. I'm going to give this 2 or 3 minutes and see how much it actually absorbs. Okay, it looks like it's pretty much absorbed all it's going to. So now I'm just going to take this off and sort of set it aside for a couple of minutes. Okay, next is the paraffin wax. And if you don't have any of this, you could probably just find some candles you have lying around the house or go to the dollar store and melt some down. It's pretty inexpensive. And it's basically the exact same procedure. Again, you don't want a super high heat here, because this stuff will melt pretty quickly. There you go, you can see it. I'm gonna turn this down. I just want to just get it to melt. I don't need to have the stuff crackling and boiling around. And do be careful, of course, if you spill this, it hurts. Ask me how I know. I've done it a couple times before, and yeah, it doesn't feel good. Okay, it's just about melted there. I'm going to do the same thing here. Just kind of move this around and get that wax to kind of stick everywhere. Turn it upside down. Just be careful, guys, when you're doing this. Use some common sense. Just as I went to go grab it with my hand, but I've done it a few times. Just be careful when you do it. And yeah, we want the same thing. We want this wax to kind of just penetrate the wick and then harden. So I'm going to turn off the heat again, and I'm just going to give this a few minutes to absorb, and then I'm going to let it sit a few minutes. Okay, now you can see this wax. I got quite a bit left here. Slush it around to make sure I get it everywhere, and then I'm just going to dump the rest back in here, and I will use it once again next time. So yeah. Okay, I can see the wax is starting to harden here. So I'm just going to go ahead and let this sit here and cool down for about 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, now it's sat for a few minutes. You can see it's pretty rigid and everything seems to be absorbed in. Now the next part can sometimes be a little bit tricky. I find you can have a little bit of better luck if you just cut off the end, but don't throw off the end because you can use this. This will be a great fire starter on its own. So now you have the task of trying to thread it through here. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it takes a few minutes. There it goes. So in this case, the tube has the same inner diameter as the outer diameter of rope. So that's why it was a little bit tight. You can go a little bit bigger diameter, but of course then it's probably not going to be as effective putting out the fire. It's still, you know, as long as it's not super loose, you'll probably be okay. So there it is. Now I've got this long tinder wick here and I don't really need it that long. So I'm going to basically cut it in half here, and I'm going to use this for something else later. Just a quick note for you, my friend. If you aren't subscribed to my channel, I'd really appreciate it if you did, especially if you like this kind of content, being in the outdoors, bushcrafting, camping, that kind of thing. I've got a lot of videos for you to watch, and you'll get notified the next time one comes out. So consider it. Back to the video. Okay, so now how does this guy work? Basically, you just want to rough up the ends a little bit, expose those inner fibers. And now, see how this lights. Well, we got wind, we got everything. Now there it goes. You got to remember, this log is super wet. Everything around here is wet, and it's basically raining today. Miserable day. But there it goes. So it took a minute to get going, and you could see it will resist wind and resist water. This log is soaked. You can hear there's some water there and it's just sizzling off. And whenever you're done with the wick, snuff it out like that, and then you're good to go for next time. Okay, I've had this sitting on the ground for a few minutes with the end in the ground. I did it on purpose because I just wanted to see. I know it's not going to be super easy to light, but it should still light. Sometimes you got to really fluff it up a little bit just to get those fibers to start. There it goes. Sometimes you just turn it upside down for a second. So I just stuffed this, this is one of my favorite stoves here, the Uberleben Stoker. Stock this with wood. And I'm just gonna kind of pop this in there. And I'm basically just letting it sit in there and having it do the work for me. So now you can do other camp tasks while this is taking. And you know, you just want to make sure you keep an eye on it and let it do its thing. Okay, I just want to talk a little bit about this tinder wick here. This was a great, inexpensive, and simple project I'd recommend to anyone. Most of these materials you probably have lying around the house, and they're really inexpensive to buy anyway. You could see that the wick was pretty effective in the wind test, pretty effective in the water test. It did take a few strikes after to light, but I was lighting it on a wet log after it sat in some muddy ground for a few minutes, and it ended up lighting, and I was able to get this stove going with no problem at all. Took me about 4 or 5 minutes to get that stove going, and I did lose about that much wick, so I'm guessing you probably have about an hour of burn time with this. So you could light a number of fires, and then once this wick is exhausted, just take it out, pop a new one in, and you're good to go for the next time. So I think this is something you're going to see in my pack more often. I'll keep making these, and I've used them for a while, and I really do enjoy using them. So I want to know if you like this kind of content. Write down below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you do, why don't you consider subscribing or at least giving this video a like? Would really help me out. I do have a lot of other videos, bushcrafting, camping, DIY projects, things like that. So if you can subscribe, you'll get notified next time one drops. Until then, stay safe. Hope to see you in the woods. Take care, my friend.